Hi, boys and girls. Today I wanted to share a story with you called Moose the Worry Mutt Goes to Doggie Daycare. Who's ever remembered a time, or who can even think of a time now where they might feel worried? I know I have recently, and it's okay to worry. But when you worry, your body kind of gets into the yellow zone, and sometimes when you're really worried or really stressed out, kind of get that icky feeling maybe in your chest or in your tummy, and it's just not a good feeling to have. It's completely normal. But we always want to try to get ourselves back in that green zone, right? So we are going to learn about Moose. He's a chocolate lab, kind of like my dog Opal, if you've heard of her, especially the kids in my class. She's a yellow lab, so they could be related. And Moose is really worried about a lot of things in his life. And we are going to see how he helps himself get back in the green. Moose awoke with an itch behind his ear. When he scratched at it, a familiar foe hopped onto his shoulder. It was Fret the Flea, coming to bother him about his first day of doggy daycare. A foe is another word for like a bad guy or an enemy. Moose had always been a worrier. Fret was to blame. He was fantastic at finding things to worry about, and he whispered these worries into Moose's floppy brown ear. As Moose sat down for breakfast, Fret got right to work. Today could be an absolute disaster. Moose felt butterflies in his belly. You won't see your parents for days. Moose tried to nibble at his kibble, but those pesky butterflies made it hard to eat. Hurry up, you'll be late. Anxious to start the day, Moose scrambled towards the back door. Look, he didn't even get to eat his food, he was so worried. As his mom drove Moose to daycare, Fret kept at it. And Fret says here, what if you fail at learning how to sit? You might get bullied by a bulldog. Is being scared of failure having a good growth mindset? No, right? Every time Moose listened to Fret, Fret grew bigger, louder, and stronger. When they got to daycare, Moose stayed glued to his mom's leg. His eyes darted around as he checked the place out. Moose could choose whether he played with the big dogs or the little dogs. He wanted to play with the big dogs, but Fret had a list of worries that made Moose think twice. What if you can't run as fast as the big dogs? What if they think it's weird that you really like squirrels? Giving in to Fret and his worries, Moose chose to play with the small dogs for now. He watched from far away as the big dogs wrestled, chewed, and played, while the small dogs only yipped and yipped and yipped. A yip is like a dog bark. It's really high-pitched, like yip, yip. Yes, thought Moose. This is definitely safer. Louder, but safer. Moose settled in to chew on a bone he'd brought from home. Suddenly, one of the small dogs tried to steal it. The yipping turned into nipping. Nipping's another word for biting. Is that how you think we play with friends and share? No, right? Startled, Moose jumped back. This little dog made him nervous. And when Moose got really nervous, he often ran in circles, faster and faster, around and around. But all that did was make his doggy heart beat faster, leaving him breathless and dizzy. So Moose decided he would simply sit very still. He didn't touch anything or play with anyone until it was time to go home. Before long, Moose noticed that all but one of the other dogs had been picked up by their parents. Fret went wild with this one. What if Dad forgot you? I bet your parents moved to Hawaii. Finally, Dad arrived. It turned out that traffic was just terrible. And that happens, right? Sometimes our parents get stuck in traffic or they're late, but they always come back for us. By the time he got home, Moose's brain and body were worn out from a long day of worrying. He snuck into his parents' bedroom and hoped the fretting would stop. And then Fret says down here, I bet there are cat burglars outside. What if you're not a good enough guard dog? Long ago, Moose had convinced himself that he needed to do 3 things in a certain order to keep the cat burglars away. Do you think there's really cat burglars? I don't know. Could be. Probably not, though. First, he licked his parents' toes. Then, they took turns kissing his nose. Finally, he turned in a circle 3 times. Exactly 3. Moose collapsed into a fitful slumber. Slumber is another word for sleep. Whew! Worrying is exhausting. Instantly, a miniature version of Moose appeared on his shoulder. See right here? But this Moose was brave, dressed in a snazzy cape with matching boots. Who are you? Moose asked. I'm Mighty Moose. I'm here to help you with your worries. I've been waiting for you to tell that pesky flea who's boss. But where did you come from? Asked Moose. With a wink, Mighty Moose replied. I'm here all the time, but sometimes your worries are so loud that you can't hear me. Mighty Moose looked pretty courageous. Moose wondered whether Mighty Moose could teach him a thing or two. This time, when Moose and Fret left for daycare, Mighty Moose was right there with them. Anytime Fret piped up, Mighty Moose pushed back. So this side is what Fret the Flea is saying, and this side is what Mighty Moose, the superhero dog, is saying. So Fret says, what if you fail at learning how to sit? Learning something new takes practice. You might get bullied by a bulldog. You can always just bark back. Just don't bite. What if they think it's weird that you really like squirrels? Lots of dogs like squirrels. Surely I'm not the only one. Every time Mighty Moose barked back at Fret, Fret got smaller, meeker, and weaker, while Moose felt braver, calmer, and stronger. It's getting back into that green zone, maybe. Moose decided he was ready to run with the big dogs. Boldly, he bounded into the big dog park, determined to face his fears. As it turned out, the big dogs were really friendly. To his surprise, Moose made a friend with a bulldog named Princess, who shared a love for squirrels. Before Moose even thought to look at the clock, Mom arrived to take him home. He waved goodbye to all his new friends, promising to play tomorrow. On the ride home, he stuck his head out the car window and let his ears flap in the wind. Moose was finally feeling less like a worrier and more like a warrior. A warrior is another word for someone who's really strong and really brave. Moose and Mighty Moose gave each other a high paw in celebration of their victory over Fret the Flea. You've worked really hard today, Moose. Be proud of yourself. And with that, Mighty Moose dropped a matching cape over Moose's wide, fluffy shoulders. Moose's parents came to tuck him into bed. They kissed his nose, he licked their toes, and he curled up in his own comfy bed. He smiled to himself as he realized he didn't need to do things in a certain order, or a circle 3 times to feel safe and sound. At last, Moose closed his eyes. He drifted off to sleep, dreaming of tennis balls, bones, and, of course, squirrels. That is the end.